I fled to the wilderness the moment I confirmed my wife's betrayal. I'm not entirely sure why I'm writing this down, perhaps to organize my thoughts now that the dust has settled, or maybe my story will help someone else keep their sanity in a similar situation. In February 2019, my life turned upside down. I accidentally discovered that my 30-year-old wife, to whom I had been married for 3.5 years, was leading a double life. At the time, I was working as a contract technical consultant. My job required occasional travel, but between trips I could work from home for weeks. My wife, let's call her Elena, held a high-level position as the commercial director for a large equipment sales firm. Until that moment, I considered our marriage near perfect, though there had been some tension lately due to my trips and her insane schedule. Looking back, we met 5 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. We struck up a conversation, and the chemistry was instant and intense. Honestly, I thought I was punching above my weight class at the time. She was sophisticated, articulate, a true lady, while I was a regular guy, a bit rough around the edges. But she seemed to love that contrast. We started dating, and it was a whirlwind. We couldn't get enough of each other. 8 months later, we tied the knot and moved into a spacious rental apartment, saving up for a house of our own. The first 3 years were great, but then something shifted. My feelings hadn't changed, but Elena started picking fights over nothing. Every time I gently asked about her late nights or endless corporate events, she exploded. Her argument was ironclad. I'm building a career. I have to play by the business rules. She scolded me, saying I had no right to control her given my own business trips. I tried to explain that I could cut back on travel. In reality, I was only gone for 3 or 4 days every 6 weeks. But our talks turned into circular arguments with no resolution. In hindsight, I see how blind I was. I never even entertained the thought of an affair. I chalked everything up to stress and fatigue, ignoring the fact that our intimacy had completely evaporated. My self-esteem took a hit with every rejection when I tried to initiate things. I didn't notice her constantly hiding her phone or locking herself in the guest room she'd converted into a home office, supposedly working on reports. Around the fall of 2018, Elena started coming home, changing clothes quickly and leaving again for business dinners. At first, it was once a week, then 3 or 4 times. I'm not a jealous man by nature, but I knew a woman like her attracts attention. Still, she insisted she was solely focused on work and collaborating with the board of directors. My suspicions first took shape about a month before D-Day. That evening, she stopped at the supermarket before coming home and asked me to help bring in the bags. As I was grabbing groceries from the back seat of her car, my eye caught something shiny that had rolled under the passenger seat. I reached in and pulled it out. It was a massive men's wristwatch, a heavy, expensive chronograph, definitely not my style, and certainly not something my wife would wear. In that moment, I felt like I'd been doused in ice water. I knew that if something rolls that deep under a seat, it usually happens during a moment of chaos or passion. My brain refused to rationalize what a strange man's watch was doing in my wife's car. I put it back under the seat. I felt nauseous, my heart hammering against my ribs. When I walked into the kitchen with the bags, Elena asked if I was okay because I looked pale as death. I mumbled something about blood pressure, trying not to show my anger or the sting of betrayal. Though I stayed silent that night, doubt began to rot me from the inside. I decided to dig for the truth, realizing that aside from that strange find, I had no concrete proof. We live in a major city, and her office is downtown. I decided to push the paranoia aside for a moment and try to reconnect. One Friday, I decided to surprise her. I cooked a luxurious dinner, roasted meat, the best dishes, candles, her favorite wine, and flowers. She breezed in like a whirlwind, as usual. I proudly pointed to the set table. Instead of joy, I saw a shadow of annoyance on her face, masked by a sad smile. She said she had already agreed to meet colleagues at a bar to discuss a project and was just rushing in to shower. Something inside me snapped. I can't describe the rage that boiled up, but that was the last straw. While she was in the shower, I took my work smartphone, which I rarely used, turned on the GPS tracking, and silently slid it deep into the seat pocket behind the driver's seat of her car. I'd been thinking about this method for a while. Then, I simply dumped the entire dinner into the trash, flowers and all. When she came out, smelling of perfume and looking stunning, she said, "Well, should we grab a quick bite?" I replied, "Forget it. Go to your friends." She looked at me strangely and asked if I was mad. I said, "I'm just disappointed that you never want to spend time together." She instantly went on the offensive, calling me a child and selfish. I stood there listening, realizing the absurdity of it all. Then I quietly said, "Silly me. I thought you'd like an evening for just the two of us." She just scoffed and left, slamming the door. I pulled out my personal phone and started tracking the beacon. She stopped at a popular lounge bar where office workers often gathered. It was about a 20-minute drive. I made a split-second decision to go there. I had to see it with my own eyes. Her car was indeed in the lot. I parked across the street, hiding in the shadows. I felt pathetic, like a stalker from a cheap detective novel, but I needed to silence the anxiety. An hour later, I saw her exit the venue. She wasn't alone. A man was holding her arm. I recognized him, one of the executives at her company. He pulled her close and kissed her, not in a friendly way. My stomach tied in knots. My body went numb. They got into another car, a taxi or his vehicle, and drove off. I followed. 10 minutes later, the road led us, as you probably guessed, to a hotel. I pulled over on the shoulder and watched as they walked hand in hand into the lobby. I had seen enough. I felt like a complete idiot. I started pounding the steering wheel until my hands hurt. Something inside me shut down. I don't remember driving away. It was like autopilot. I came to my senses on the highway, driving out of the city. I was driven by rage and despair. I just drove aimlessly, replaying that scene at the hotel in my head. After about 40 kilometers, I saw the sign for an old roadside bar on the outskirts of a small town. I went in and ordered a whiskey. The bartender, an older woman with kind eyes, looked at me and said, "Honey, you look like you've been run over by a steamroller." I just gave a crooked smile and nodded. A man in his 60s sat down next to me. I didn't want to talk to anyone, but he radiated such calm that I didn't move away. One word led to another, and suddenly I spilled everything to him. How my wife was cheating, how I just wanted to disappear. He slapped me on the back and said, "Buddy, you're not alone. The same thing happened to me years ago. But listen, these things don't happen without a reason. Now, your life is going to change. For better or worse. That depends entirely on you." His words hit me like a cold shower. His name was Jim, a local farmer, a real salt-of-the-earth type. He asked if I had anywhere to go. I realized I didn't want to go back to that apartment. Jim offered, "I have an old hunting cabin on my property, basically a converted trailer. It needs some work, but it's livable. Come out and take a look. If it works for you, I'll give you a great deal. I need someone to keep an eye on that part of the land anyway." The bartender, overhearing us, chimed in, "Sweetie, if I had a chance to run away from my ex like that, I'd have run barefoot." It sounded like a movie plot, but I felt it was exactly what I needed. I promised Jim I'd think about it and visit. I got home late that night. Elena came out of the bedroom and asked where I had been. I looked at her and calmly asked, "Where were you?" She responded with her rehearsed line about drinks with colleagues. I asked point blank, "Are you having an affair?" She looked scared for a second, but quickly regained her composure. "No, why would you say that? You're drunk and talking nonsense." I told her I'd heard rumors. She started demanding names, accusing me of paranoia, and went to bed. I stayed on the couch. I didn't sleep that night. The image of their kiss burned in my mind. But amidst the pain and disgust, a plan was hatching. My survival instinct was screaming, "Run!" For the next few days, we lived like roommates. I drove out to Jim's place and saw the cabin. It was a 26-foot structure, old but sturdy, with all the necessities. It sat in a picturesque spot at the foot of the hills, surrounded by forest. I instantly felt peace there. I agreed on a price with Jim. He practically gave it away, and started preparing. My wife continued her game, sinking deeper into her lies. Her denials were so brazen I almost wanted to laugh. I didn't let on that I knew the truth. I just started taking action. While she was at work, I slowly moved my belongings to the cabin. It gave me a sense of control. I noticed Elena being nicer to me, probably out of guilt, but it meant nothing to me anymore. One evening, when she was getting ready for another meeting, I started getting dressed too. She asked, surprised, where I was going. I answered with her own words. Meeting some friends, you don't know them, you'd be bored. She looked confused, but left. I drove to Jim's. I started fixing up my new life, making new friends among the locals. I stopped drinking so I could keep a clear head. The climax came when Elena announced a business trip for a week. She said the whole board of directors was going. I looked her in the eye and said, I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend. It just slipped out. An argument started, but I didn't engage. As Jim said, it doesn't matter who he is. What matters is she decided to burn the marriage down. As soon as she left, I moved the rest of my stuff. I took only what was mine: clothes, tools, tech. I left the furniture. Instead of a long letter, I wrote a single sentence on a scrap of paper. I hope it was worth it. I placed my wedding ring on top of the note and left it on the kitchen table. I felt an incredible weight lift off me. I was free. No more lies. I knew a tough road lay ahead, but now I had the time and space to heal. I moved into the cabin, started running in the mornings, breathing fresh air. I didn't answer any of her texts from the trip. When she returned home, my phone blew up. Calls, texts. She even got her mother to call, but I didn't react. The messages shifted from anger to pleading. What does this mean? We need to talk. I'm not seeing anyone. After a week of silence, the text I was waiting for arrived. I'm sorry, things got out of hand. I was involved with someone at work, but it meant nothing. It was a mistake. I was confused. A mistake? A 6-month relationship is a mistake? That confession only disgusted me. This wasn't the woman I had loved. She begged me to come back, then got angry again, calling me a coward, texting, "Where are you? Let's fix this." But I never replied. I changed my number, and now my life belongs only to me. I chose myself, and it was the best decision I ever made. I simply stopped reacting. I changed my phone number, and that marked the beginning of my true liberation. Around June 2019, a few months after my escape, Elena tried to reach me via email. She wrote in a formal tone, claiming she had retained an expensive lawyer and was preparing for a legal war over asset division unless I met with her in person. I replied with a single short email. Fine, let the lawyers talk. It was a bluff on her part. She realized blackmail wouldn't work, and she probably didn't want the public dirt. A week later, the tone changed. She agreed to a quick, uncontested divorce, as long as I signed. I signed the papers remotely. Finally, I was a free man. No final goodbye, no conversations. It hurt her more than it did me. Months passed. At first, it was hard. Sometimes a familiar song on the radio or an old photo would derail me for the entire day. But the forest heals. I'm officially divorced, and things are looking up. In fact, I met a wonderful girl. Her name is Alina. We met comically. I was running on a trail and saw her trying to pull her dog out of some blackberry bushes where he'd gotten stuck. I helped her, and we got to talking. She's younger than me, fun, and calls me her mountain man. I'm in no rush for a new serious relationship, but it's nice to know life goes on. I continue living in Jim's cabin and plan to change nothing. Simplicity is exactly what I was missing. But the past has a habit of catching up with you. Recently, I ran into an old acquaintance in town. He mentioned he had seen Elena. According to him, she was not a happy camper. She told him that I was the biggest loss of her life and that she would do anything to win me back. I laughed it off, but a knot of anxiety formed in my gut. Was she going to come looking for me? My fears were realized last weekend. I drove into the county center to use the Wi-Fi at a local coffee shop and send off some work reports. As I was leaving the shop heading toward my pickup, I heard a familiar voice. "Max!" My heart dropped into my stomach. I turned around. Across the street, there she was, Elena. She was waving at me. It felt like the start of a zombie apocalypse. I froze. She ran across the street and rushed toward me, clearly intending to hug me. Instinctively, I put my hands up, palms out, stopping her. "Max, I've been looking for you for so long." Her voice trembled. "I heard you moved out here. We need to talk. I feel like a trapped animal." I gave in and agreed to 5 minutes. She suggested going to my place, but I flatly refused. "No, we'll sit right here on the bench." She started with flattery. "You've changed so much, grew a beard, lost weight. You look so masculine." I could see she was trying to play on my instincts. She looked striking. Short shorts, a light blouse, her hair tied back just the way I used to like. She had her feminine weapon turned up to full power, but my danger radar was screaming. Then came the confession. She started apologizing, talking about karma. According to her, after I left, a scandal exploded at the company. Her lover, that same executive, got scared for his reputation. It turned out he had a fiancée, the owner's daughter. He threw Elena under the bus, blamed her for everything, and managed to get her transferred to a branch office. Out of spite, she told his fiancée everything, the wedding was canceled, and she was forced to resign. She cried, her head lowered. I sat there watching the passers-by, feeling nothing but exhaustion. "I didn't want this," she said. "I got tangled in the intrigue. He manipulated me with his power. I thought I was using him for my career, but it turned out he was using me. After you left, I realized what a stupid thing I'd done. I broke it off immediately. I want to try to start over with a clean slate." I snapped. I looked her in the eye and said, barely holding back a shout, "How dare you? You come out here and think you can just erase everything with an eraser? You want me to forgive how you trampled on our marriage? I told you, cheating is the end. There is no reboot. You killed us the moment you got into his car. Do you think I'm stupid? I saw you two walk into that hotel." People started looking. Elena burst into tears and grabbed my arm. "I know I deserve this, but I love you. I didn't realize it until I lost you. Give me a chance. I'll spend my whole life making it up to you." She started hyperventilating from the sobbing. I felt awkward. I calmed down a bit, and we walked through the park. She told me how she found me. She extracted the info from a mutual friend who let it slip that she'd seen me in this town. We went into a cafe. I ordered coffee, no alcohol. I didn't want to give her any excuse for manipulation. She asked to come back again, saying she hadn't been with anyone since me. I firmly said no. That chapter is closed. She begged for my phone number, but I refused. "You'll just call in the middle of the night." I gave her only my new email address. Before leaving, she asked, "If I hadn't cheated, would we have had a chance?" I answered honestly that I didn't know. Maybe in 5 or 10 years if we had both changed. She clung to that like a lifeline. "I'll wait. I'll prove it to you." She left, leaving me in total confusion. I went home, ran 10 kilometers, and sat by the fire for a long time. I'm not going back to her. There are no second chances in matters like this. Update, the finale. This will be the last update. Elena did indeed write me a massive email. She swore her love again and proposed coming up for the weekend. I replied shortly and clearly, "No, I'm happy in my solitude. I'm 33, and I see no point in complicating my life. I have friends, I have Elena, I have freedom." In response to my refusal, Elena dropped the mask. She wrote that she had received a job offer in another state and actually wanted me to go with her since my job allows me to work remotely. So this whole sob story was just an attempt to find a convenient companion for her move. I wrote back that we are done, that I don't trust her, and that I don't know her anymore. I blocked her email. Luckily, I'm leaving for a business trip for a week, so even if she drags herself out here again, she'll find a locked door. By the way, regarding the comments, someone wrote a story about a friend who forgave his fiancée for cheating. She spent years atoning, tolerated his revenge cheating, passed lie detector tests, and eventually they got married. I'm happy for them, but that's not my path. I don't want to live with police surveillance in my own home. Life is too short to spend it rebuilding ruins. I've blocked all the mutual friends who leaked info to her. Elena is planning to come over for the holidays. We're going to grill meat and watch the stars. Life is beautiful when you discard toxic people. Thanks to everyone who read this. Value yourselves and don't be afraid to start over. End of transmission.